Welcome to Pro Practice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's episode is based on one of my favorite pieces written by Chopin, the Mazurka in A minor, Opus 67, No. 4. And I'll just go ahead and play a line or two of this to start the video. Okay, and one of the best pieces of news is that Sergei Babayan has a recording of this on YouTube, and it is one of the most spectacular recordings probably of any piece I've ever heard. Not of his playing, but just there are a few special recordings for me of certain pieces of just various works in the piano repertoire, like Kate Liu's Chopin Nocturne from the first round of the International Chopin competition. Wow, that is mind-blowing, and I think that this is, for me, one of my favorite recordings of any piece ever. Another is Daniel Trifonov's recording of the Chopin E minor concerto on his album Chopin Evocations. So check out that recording for sure. If you're not familiar with Sergei Babayan, he spells his last name Babayan. Go listen to this. It's a pristine recording. What I want to discuss today in today's video is not only how we can execute all of the ornaments and the pedaling and making sure our voicing is good, but really getting into some of the discussion about rubato, because that is one of the things that will set you apart with the mazurkas. So rather than just which is still very nice, it's lovely playing, but what about something more thought-provoking and heart-wrenching? So we're going to talk about how we can start to go about manipulating that rubato and a good starting place, and how we can start to stretch it without going too far and also without doing too little, because I see students kind of riding that line all the time. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to first of all discuss these ornaments. So it would just be a 3-note. You could do a 4-note, but I think it's a little notey. I would do, and then the 3 notes of that little trill. Sometimes it's referred to as an upper mordent, just depending on who you're asking. But basically that little squiggle means go E, F, E, go to the upper note. And a lot of times upper mordents can mean a 4-note little miniature trill. Sometimes they just mean 3 notes. It's all based on the interpretation of what's gonna sound better. And because the line is already starting with an F, that's why I would do E, F, E. That's why I do a 3-note one. Now, when you hear professional recordings, you're gonna hear them often do something like this. And it's a little confusing because you're like, wait, it just sounds like they're doing a 4-note trill there. But it's because of the rubato. They're delaying that right hand coming in. And then it rushes towards that upper mordent or that little trill. So it almost just sounds like an even 4-note trill. But you could also take this approach. This would be totally fine. That was kind of terrible right there. I don't like that as much though, so... Right there, just a little trick, rather than trying to do this 4-note chord Chopin wrote in the left hand, just take it in the right hand, that F. That will keep everything much more loose. Okay, let's talk about pedal. Change on that rest. It's gonna make it sound breathless. Change, change, change. Change, 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 change. So this measure, I probably would just let that bleed and then change, 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 change. Change, 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 change. And then feather your pedal out, off. And then I put my pedal down here. Then change, and then I come off. Now if you like that a little bit more liquid feeling, it's totally fine to do change, 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 change. Since he writes marcato right there, sometimes I'll make it a little bit more military sounding. I think it really contrasts nicely with this more dreamy opening. Now, we talked at the beginning of the video, like, how are we going to go about manipulating this rubato? How much is too much? And there's no set definition, but I can tell you that if you're stretching it so far, like, that there's no semblance of rhythm anymore, then it's too much. And if there's... If it's almost metronomic, you're probably not doing enough. I really do feel like the best Mazurka performances have quite a bit of rubato. So listening to recordings by Argerich, Daniel Trifonov, I believe Ignaz Friedman has some amazing recordings, and I downloaded those through Apple Music. And if I'm remembering correctly, however that Mazurka goes, the other A minor one, I'm sure there's a lot more than just those two A minor ones, but that one will teach you a lot about getting the rubato as stretchy as you can. Listening to recordings by Cortot, C-O-R-T-O-T, will also help get you in that mood. So let's go ahead and try this now. We're going to stretch things. And when we do stretch things, you want to stretch the long values and allow the shorter values. So like you'd want to maybe stretch the quarter notes or the dotted quarter notes where you're going to stretch, where you feel like inspired to stretch. Stretch those notes. Don't stretch the eighth notes too much unless you're just easing into the phrase. So for instance... Notice all the places I took time were mostly on long values, and the only place I stretched eighth notes was in easing in here. One of the most effective ways that I learned this type of rubato was just having Babayan play it for me, and then I would kind of play it back, and just that imitation. So feel free to play along with any passage that I play in here, and just kind of learn my sense of rubato as a starting point for you developing your own sense of rubato. A lot of people disagree with that. They're like, no, don't be a copycat of anyone else. But a lot of times it helps to copy someone who has had experience with this type of piece, and then you can go off on your own and refine that sense of rubato. That really helped me personally when I took with Babayan. So hopefully, I mean, I'm not as good as Babayan as by any means, but hopefully this can help you get a good starting point as I take you through this. Okay, let's keep going. So basically...